So it's officially 2026, and for the second year in a row, I have made a top 10 worst commercials list for the Defunctland Patreon. As with last year, I wanted to release one of the better segments as a freebie to people that aren't into Patreon and all that, so I put it up to a vote, and the Patreon Discord decided that the public would receive my rant on the Capital One bank guy. This was my third most hated commercial of the year, and before I play this segment, I just want to say that I come off super negative in this, but keep in mind that this was made after I ranted about 7 other commercials. It just so happens that this was the one that people thought the public should see. So if you're like, wow, this guy's really negative. Yes, but also it's because I was in pretty deep at this point. With that in mind, let's dive into number 3, the Capital One bank guy. Capital One, like most credit card companies, has a lot of different advertising campaigns. Most famously, they have the Samuel L. Jackson commercials. These commercials are pretty typical. Sometimes there's jokes, but it's really just him talking about how much he loves Capital One and how great Capital One is and how you should get your Quicksilver cash back or whatever credit card they're trying to infect the population with. During March Madness, he'll be joined by Charles Barkley and Spike Lee, and they'll do skits together, and those are fine. I like those ads. They're seasonal. They only run for a few weeks, and it's funny to see those 3 guys together. They have a good rapport, and as far as credit card ads go, those are some of the better ones.
Kermit, my man, you ready to fan out?
Yeah, I can't watch the game.
What happened?
She happened.
Cut the chit-chat, Frog! We got a show to do!
2 fingers. Yeah, back at you, bros.
See, that's a good Capital One commercial. It has Kermit in it, and I like that. Capital One also has some of my least favorite ads ever. And so the ones I want to talk about are the ones featuring the Capital One bank guy. But before I do that, I would like to talk about 2 other Capital One commercials that could have easily been in this spot, one of which is just horrific. It's so frustrating, and I can't believe they're still doing it, and it's devolving. And that is with John Travolta, and he usually plays Santa. Now, I can't tell if the reason they went with John Travolta and also have Samuel L. Jackson is a Pulp Fiction thing. And I think the joke is that he looks really weird. Oh, and then he does the Pulp Fiction dance. I remember that from the movie. And not that John Travolta hasn't been in a lot of famous movies, but he's been in 3 really famous movies: Pulp Fiction, Saturday Night Fever, and Grease. And this year, during Christmas, they did Grease. They'll break glass in case of emergency. I guess things aren't going too well.
It's Grease Lightning!
Grease the lightning!
Lightning, you're burning up the quarter mile.
A recession indicator that John Travolta Santa does Grease Lightning in a Capital One commercial. It's worse than it sounds because it's a weird fake beard. And there's one where there's a Holiday Night Fever in 2023, but this year that they finally did it, they did the Grease Lightning like car scene. This is John Travolta as Santa Claus in a Capital One commercial, singing Grease Lightning in reference to him being Santa greasing up his sleigh. There's a lot going on. The other set of commercials from Capital One that easily could have made this list, and I guess are in spirit, considering I'm talking about them here, are the ones with Jennifer Garner. Now, Jennifer Garner is an actress that I like. I think she's very personable. She seems very nice, at least her persona seems very nice, so I'm stating that all up front so I can then talk about how much I dislike these commercials. Apparently, Jennifer Garner's been in them since, I'm finding one from 2016. I haven't seen this one. Let's watch this one first.
My dad called them up and asked for the Jennifer Garner card, which is such a dad thing to do. After he gave his name, the woman from Capital One said, "Mr. Garner, are you related to Jennifer?" Kind of joking with him. And my dad was so proud to tell her, "As a matter of fact, she is my middle daughter." So now Dad has the venture card. He's earning his double miles.
I do think it's really funny the way that she's talking about her dad so wistfully, as if he's, oh man, I miss him so much. I wish I was back home. And then he just awkwardly scoots onto screen.
Are you crying? No. There's no crying in baseball. Or with the Capital One venture card, because
when I saw this commercial initially, I had not seen the movie A League of Their Own. I haven't seen a lot of movies that people tell me to watch. I'm sure it's a great movie, but I hadn't seen that movie. And my assumption had to have been Jennifer Garner had a role in the movie A League of Their Own. She did not. She's also playing Tom Hanks' role in that movie, and there's no crying in credit cards. It's just, it's nonsense that they're like, well, we're just gonna is it the anniversary of this movie? And if so, why not get somebody from the movie? And so it's like, well, no, it's just such an iconic scene that we're going to recreate it. It's like, okay, but is Jennifer Garner going to recreate iconic scenes from several movies? No, there's no other movie that I've seen, no other commercial where Jennifer Garner is like put into the movie. So it is just a one-off, random left field, baseball pun, League of Their Own reference that no one from the movie is in, just to sell credit cards. It just, I don't know.
If you love to travel, Capital One has a rewards credit card that...
This is all green screen. Maybe the reason I don't like it is because it's fake. Because this is not, like, look at the face she makes to that hiker, and then it's so unnatural. She's like, oh, whoa. And the hiker's like, whoa, whoa. Green screen, real shot. Green screen, real shot. That doesn't look like a real shot either. Then it's somebody else. So wait, is this ad? Is that what it is? And maybe I'm just completely wrong, but is it that she's always on a green screen and everyone else is like in a drone shot and they get like a body double for her? Well, she went to the luxury hotel. That might be the only one we didn't green screen is her at the luxury hotel. The rest, all the hiking and the windy roads, that was the body double. But the luxury hotel, that was an on-set day maybe. Taylor Swift has done a lot of Capital One commercials, which I think is great. Credit cards are great. I love credit cards. Can you believe that despite talking about all these commercials that I hate from Capital One, none of these commercials made the list? The one that made the list is the Capital One Bank Guy. Now, the Capital One Bank Guy has been around for a bit, but he was not called the Capital One Bank Guy. His name is Jeremy Brandt. He is known for his long-running role in Capital One commercials, where he lives and works... I'm reading AI. So he has becometh the Capital One Bank Guy. He acts as this sort of anonymous, forgettable spokesperson, like a classic spokesperson. A nice, attractive guy telling you about Capital One. As with everything, it can't just be a guy who's a normal guy who tells you why Capital One doesn't have overdraft fees and that means they're the better banking option for you. It has to be some weird, new age, meta contextual end times take on this character. And he's not a character. He's never been a character. He's like a narrator that you can look at. That's essentially what it is. It's not a character. It's not a performance. It's a narrator that you can look at by a guy that I'm sure has a lot of credits. It looks like he has a lot of credits in like Law and Order, Criminal Minds. I'm sure he's maybe been on it once or twice. That type of actor that does those types of gigs. Because, of course, we can't just have something simple. It has to be 3 layers on top of itself and also eating itself and devouring the fabric of space and time. They've rebranded him to the Capital One Bank Guy. And this is insidious, and it makes me furious because not a single soul on earth thought about this guy, period. He was just a guy on TV when you weren't watching telling you about Capital One. This gaslighting is this idea that the Capital One guy was either so attractive or so interesting or so beloved by people worldwide that he has become commonly known by the public, of course, you know this, as the Capital One Bank Guy. That's what you're calling him, right? I mean, you just can't stop talking about this guy, but he doesn't have a name. So it's like when people talk about him, they call him the Capital One Bank Guy. So that's what we started calling him too. But that premise is bullshit because there is no Capital One Bank Guy. No one made that reference. So it's this weird gaslighting where they want you to basically buy into a hype that they're convincing you that you made. It's just this false reality they're trying to construct where the Capital One Bank Guy became his own thing. I mean, people love our product so much. Some of this stuff just spirals out of control, and we didn't even have time to give him a name, and now everybody loves him. And oh man, everybody's asking for the Capital One Bank Guy. And if you think like, okay, well, just because they call him that doesn't mean that the ads are about him being famous as the Capital One Bank Guy, beloved, universally adored as the Capital One Bank Guy, except for this year, that's what they are about.
Any questions?
How did you become the Capital One Bank Guy?
Do you mind? I've always been passionate about no fees or minimums on checking accounts.
How do I get your job?
So one of the worst offenders in this run of ads is one where he is on stage at a bring your father to, or it's a career day. It's not a bring your, he's not canonically anyone's father. It is career day, and Derek Jeter, the New York Yankees baseball player, a real-life astronaut, and the Capital One Bank guy are on stage together. The premise of this ad is that Derek Jeter and the astronaut can't get a word in because all the kids and the adults, they just want to know more about the Capital One Bank guy. That is the premise of the ad. He takes the baseball bat from Derek Jeter, which already, wow. He takes the baseball bat from Derek Jeter as if it's a talking stick, and then he starts talking about Capital One. Strangely, and this is my first time watching this to like dissect it, there's an ATM in the background. Like he brought it to career day, which I think is supposed to be a joke, although it's never brought up or really like honed in on. So I'm going to choose to believe that that is the joke. In the world of this commercial, he dragged an ATM into career day, which, fair's fair, that's funny.
What's been the highlight of your career?
And that'd have to be,
Bank guy.
Helping people keep more money in their wallet with no overdraft fees.
Aren't you in the Hall of Fame?
And didn't you live in space?
What's in your wallet?
Well, the Capital One Bank guy is so famous to these kids and to these adults that Derek Jeter is overshadowed, that an astronaut is overshadowed. That is the joke of the premise. But what remains is this idea that the Capital One Bank guy exists, he's beloved, and maybe we'll stretch it a bit to say he's more beloved than Derek Jeter. But it's not up for debate whether this person is now a character, a mascot, and it is trying to convince you that this was because of the demand of the public. That if you don't love this guy, it's you that's out of the loop.
Whoa, it's the Capital One Bank guy.
That's me.
There you go. End of argument. Whoa, it's Capital One Bank guy. That's me. Is it not crazy that in the same, there's something going on. They know something that they're not telling us. They know they've found a strategy. Somebody is selling a course somewhere. Some consulting company figured out they need to hype up the mascots as celebrities more and make them personalities even more than they already are. Because you're telling me that in the year 2025, we have 2 commercials with 2 different mascots of 2 different companies, both of which the premise is, I want a selfie with the mascot. Like it's just so, I've already said it 1,000 times. It's a black hole. It's a cultural black hole.
Ooh, that's a keeper.
So, what do you do outside of the Capital One Cafe?
What do you mean?
Like when you go home or...
Almost as a reference to the fact that this guy is not a character. He has no characterization. He has no backstory. He has no personality. He has nothing at all. The joke now is, what do you do when you're not being a Capital One Bank guy and he just sleeps in the Capital One Cafe? So they've established and put into concrete that while this man is famous and everybody loves him, and I don't need to tell you how much everybody loves Capital One, and especially the Capital One Bank guy, it's also canon that he has no life. He has no prospects. He has no ambition. He has no wants or needs or motivations. He lives in Capital One. The only way that I would support this type of surrealism and sell credit cards at the same time is if every Capital One location in the country had a guy that looks even ballpark like this guy, because he doesn't need to look exactly. You're not going to be able to tell them apart. The usual suspects lineup is indistinguishable from each other. That calls himself the Capital One Bank guy and sleeps in the bank. And that you can go and see him there. And he's like, hey, I'm the Capital One Bank guy. I do like the acting performance. I don't think Jeremy Brandt's like a bad actor, that he's not good as a generic spokesperson, because the look he gives here is one of absolute panic when he realizes he's never considered leaving the bank. And the last commercial from the Capital One Bank guy was one that aired at the end of the year, where Sam Jackson from the credit card commercials, this is a crossover. It's a crossover commercial, everybody. Sam Jackson is just waxing poetic, literally reading a poem about how awesome the Capital One Bank guy is.
Have you heard the story that's about a guy who lives in a bank?
And then the Capital One Bank guy's like listening to the story that's about him, and the way he very slow, again, it's good acting. He slowly sets down the tray of cookies as to not disturb the story that is about him. Good acting performance mixed with a ton of ego, mixed with gaslighting. It is a spectacle, but it's terrible. That's why it's so high up on this list.
It's where the Capital One Bank guy says, what's in your wallet?
Never occurred to me how aggressive that tagline is. Like I'm getting mugged. The other thing this year that I've noticed, and this is true, I guess, of last year and probably the last few years if I actually went back, is they're doing a lot of unique vertical ads. They're filming these maybe on real cameras, but they want them to appear as though they're iPhones. Like, they want them to appear as content, probably so they fit in like an Instagram Reels or a TikTok feed, and it takes you a second to realize, like, oh, this is a commercial. Here's one of a POV. You meet the Capital One Bank guy.
Whoa, it's the Capital One Bank guy.
That's me.
Could we get a selfie?
Of course. Say no fees or minimums on your Capital One checking account.
Even though these all suck and nobody wants to watch them and they're annoying and unfunny and unnatural and unreal and everything that's wrong. But again, I guess at least they're made by a human. Like, somebody got paid to point a camera at this shit, which is the new low bar to hurdle in today's age. I found the Capital One Bank guy, Jeremy Brandt, as himself on a podcast talking about Capital One. Let's see if he has any hot takes.
It's awesome, man. Yeah, I love it. I love it. I've been doing this 21 years, and
He's been doing this 21 years? He's been doing this since 2004? If he's been doing this for over 20 years, maybe he's earned the right to be a character. Or maybe not. I don't know, actually.
And when I started, I just thought, like, I'll try it for a year. It's something I kind of want to do. And
you're talking acting.
Yeah, acting. Yeah.
Oh, thank God. This guy on the podcast thought exactly how I did. Yeah, I've been doing this for 21 years, and I started it, thought, oh, yeah, this is nice. And the guy's like, what do you mean you've been the Capital One spokesperson for 21 years? And he was like trying to do the math, and he's like, how's that even possible? What?
Last couple of years, they've just gone to a year. They've got us on the cycle with, Jen Garner and stuff like that. So they can all negotiate. Everybody's at the same time.
Oh, cool.
And
they got on this cycle with Jen Garner, and we can all negotiate at the same time. It's like when you hear about the Friends cast all banded together to make sure everyone was paid the same for the final season. But it's the Capital One Bank guy, Jennifer Garner, and Samuel L. Jackson together be like, look, we don't want any of us, they're looking around, they don't know. We don't want any of us to get shortchanged here. When who knows who that would be of the three of us. But we're not going to let it happen. We're a family. I mean, the Capital One Bank guy seems very humble, seems like a really nice person that knows how fortunate he is to have this gig.
How many commercials were you doing a year?
Goes up and down,
right.
But I would say between 10 to 15.
Holy
I would say, yeah,
hell, good
it was
for
good.
You, man.
Yeah.
Shout out to this guy for getting that gig. No, I mean, other than the fact that it's for a credit card, I mean, what a gig. Hey, it's me from the future. What you just heard was the original ending to the segment that appeared in the top 10 worst commercials video for the Patreon. This is new audio that will only appear here, and the reason I'm recording this is because I have a few more details on the Capital One Bank guy. So I went on a rant whenever I recorded this originally weeks ago about how nobody ever called him the Capital One Bank guy, which is true. However, I recently stumbled onto something that there might have actually been a cult following for this guy, but it's a little weird, so I'm gonna try to tread carefully here. When I was watching this segment back, I noticed that my editor had put a mugshot of the Capital One guy in the edit, and I immediately had to find out where they got this and what it was from. So this appears on Jeremy Brandt's actual actor website, so I think it's just a gag or a funny photo. I don't think it's an actual mugshot. However, the first thing that comes up when you reverse image search this photo is a blog spot called Kenneth in the 212. This has 7 comments, so that's a lot of comments for a blog spot. And the caption is actor Jeremy Brandt, known best these days as the Capital One guy. So while this is not the Capital One Bank guy, he was referred to as the Capital One guy as early as 2020. So not the same thing, but it is notable. Also notable is the rest of this caption, which says, actor Jeremy Brandt, known best these days as the Capital One guy, is only guilty of being criminally hot. I'm not saying Jeremy Brandt's not an attractive guy. Jeremy, if you're watching this, I think you're a good-looking fellow, but I was surprised to then read the comments on this blog spot. I did not know there were people that were thirsting after the Capital One guy, now rebranded to the Capital One Bank guy. So then somebody says, woof, I love this guy. So hot, and he sure knows how to wear a pair of jeans. But then somebody else says, LOL, one of the first things I noticed as well, which seems to be in response to this person. And then another person says, me too, he's a very hot guy. So this is what I know. I'm like, wow, there's a lot of people that seem to think the Capital One guy or the Capital One Bank guy is very attractive to the point that they have congregated. But then I started to notice something. This website is gay. I don't know that this website or that this person on this website, I don't know when the last time they posted is. Let's see. Okay, this is their most recent post. So yes, so this person writes about LGBT issues. Not only is the Capital One bank guy thought of as hot, but it appears that the congregation around him as this persona, this character, this being, might have been outside of my purview, which might have been a blind spot for me, because again, not that I don't find this person attractive, but I'm not gay for the Capital One bank guy. So I started to look into this, and I was like, maybe this is just this one website, that writes about LGBT issues and LGBT culture. They just have one article about the Capital One bank guy, and that's it. However, I then go and look up the Facebook page of Jeremy Brandt. This is a post from June 18th, 2018, which is 2 years before that blog post. I had to do some investigation. Who is this beautiful man? I love your face. What an excellent choice Capital One made. So that maybe, you know, I don't want to look into the gender identity of every single person and find out exactly, you know, what the ratio is of straight affection versus, you know, gay affection for the Capital One bank guy. And also, again, I'm just going to go out there and just say, I'm super sorry for everything I'm saying. And I'm sure I'm messing this up somehow. And then I find somebody whose name is Ryan, and it says, "You are so hot, I am almost willing to destroy my credit for you." And Ryan does identify as a man, meaning that he finds the Capital One bank guy hot in a gay, he's gay hot. And then somebody named David said hot AF that was 7 years ago too. Maybe Capital One, if they weren't trying to gaslight everyone and just kind of be like, he's famous, and you know he's famous, and the stuff I talked about, there is a possibility that they knew internally, because of their data scientists and consultants, that there was a group of people that do really love him. This is a comment from when he sleeps in the bank. "I'd hide away just to be there with you." And then somebody called Ardo Brick said, "More words and a PG-13 scene." And Jeremy Brandt responded to this person and said, "Hey now." I tried to click on this Reddit link and it took me to a mature content. What? But the same user seems to have posted to a website called x-gaze.com, which seems to line up with my research. In summation, if the Capital One guy or the Capital One commercial guy, I've never seen the Capital One bank guy, but fine, they wanted to create something probably they could trademark. If that existed prior to the 2024-2025 run of these campaigns that are artificially hyping him and trying to build up its own hype and the gaslighting of his fame, if there was a contingency, a coalition of people that did find this guy uniquely interesting and gravitated toward him as a character, it seemed to be gay men. You know, that's part of it. It's a historical part of this. Yeah, anyways, if you want to watch the full video, you know, go to the Patreon. Otherwise, I'll be back with more rambly content like this. Thanks, everybody.